The next hot topic I want to touch upon, or subtopic, is regional center loans. Now, a lot of regional centers, through their affiliates, have been giving out loans to investors that invest in the regional center project. So, all three of you, if you have experienced it, what has been your experience with regional center loans?
I think, generally the experience has been good. I mean, of course, we have seen some RFEs and we've seen some adverse decisions here and there. And I think it's a little targeted. We're of the viewpoint that, what's it to USCIS? If you've made unsecured loans permissible, and if as long as this loan is structured correctly, as long as there's an underwriting process where you're checking the credit worthiness of an investor, the financial ability to repay that loan, there are interest payments which are being sourced lawfully by the investor, and the funds can also be sourced by whoever the lender is, then what's it to USCIS? I mean, you're clearly meeting all the requirements. Just because they think it's a little unorthodox and it's not something they traditionally see, that doesn't necessarily mean that this isn't approvable. And, we've seen plenty of approvals through regional centers who have used the loan program.
Our experience to date with it has been positive, but I think what USCIS is looking at, and unfortunately, I'll cite a group that has a loan program overseas, and like they're running their loan program, whatever. I'll skip the details, but basically they were blatantly advertising out there, EB-5 for $100,000, participate in our loan program. And so that's the concern of USCI. This goes back to the 90s, 1998, matter of Shung, one of the four precedent decisions at EB-5, where these groups would have loan programs and they'd have these kind of ethereal balloon payments at the end. And so it was basically, EB-5 for $100,000. And therefore there was never, and in those days, 500,000 at risk. So you take number one, USCIS generally not liking loans because they lost in court over it. And number two, their kind of longstanding concern of, to use Rohit's phrase, marginal groups, structuring loan programs as a way to entice investors at less than the required at-risk amount. Yeah, I mean, as long as the loan programs are structured properly, then USCIS might ask questions, but they should be approved on a routine basis thereafter.
Picking up on what Brandon said, if you went back to the early 90s when the program just started, I think a lot of the reason why the program did not succeed in the beginning was exactly these kind of loans where the immigration and the courts felt that the investor was not investing any of their money. There was nothing that they had put at risk out there. It was all somebody else's money. And I think that raised a whole bunch of issues which might come back again to haunt us with these loans. We just don't know. And I always encourage the investors to read the terms of the loan and the terms of the loan repayment very carefully and understand them. It's not just enough to say, oh, the regional through their affiliate or through an outside source is giving me, a loan of $400,000. But then have you realized that maybe at the start of the year, you got to pay them the entire interest amount, which could be a very large amount of money. And you may not have the ability to do that because you've stretched yourself so thin by taking the loan that could become an issue. So some of these investors, I'm not saying I do that intentionally, but I just caution them, put a little bit of a break on their thought process, like just revisit what you're doing. It's your money. It's your green card. Of course you got to do it. And like Brandon said, and we all agree, it's probably the best option today for most people. But you got to just think about it and take a little bit of a step back a bit.
Yeah, there is no such thing. There is no such thing as a program where you can only invest half the amount and that's it.
Yeah.
Again, this is still an $800,000 minimum investment, and your loan should be structured in a way that still holds true. And it comes back to your point, Abhi. Then again, you have these interest payments. This needs to be an actual loan that you would otherwise get if you were to go to like a bank or another lender like that.
Right.
I have seen a loan structured and an approval where the principal was not starting to be repaid for X number of years. Maybe it was psychologically or intentionally planned with the return of the principal coming in, but they were making interest payments all the way through. And we did get a approval, no RFE, nothing, straight out.
That's the big differentiator there, as long as they're making ongoing interest. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's how I feel it should be structured anyway, right? So the first thing is I want to clarify, just from a regional center perspective, or I guess from a Golden Gate Global perspective, we just have the loan product to enable investors. We ourselves don't encourage it. It is just that we come across a lot of H-1B investors and they have 500K or 600K available now. They have visibility on getting those funds in the next year or so. And we just want to assist them with that. Is loan our primary product? No, we don't promote. We are not a lending institution promoting loans, right? So it's just an enabling thing. The second thing is what I feel makes it more palatable for USCIS is that the loan is not for the entire duration of EB-5 investment. If you are on the hook to repay the loan in 2 years or 3 years, whereas the loan term for EB-5 is 5, then I would say the presumption is in your favor that you are on the hook to repay the loan. It is not dependent on repayment of the EB-5 funds. I think that's a very important aspect of regional center affiliate loans. Because if you have a loan term of 5 years, which overlaps with an EB-5 repayment timeline, and you're repaying the loan from the repayment of your EB-5 funds, then it can be held against you that you never invested the full amount. So there are ways of structuring the loan, getting approvals. We have, I think, more than 10 or 12 approvals in the last 1 year with the loans. And of course, there are RFEs. And as an investor, RFEs and NOIDs are very serious terms. But someone who's been on the legal side and all of you are lawyers, this is like an everyday thing. It happens. It is just a request for evidence because there is no hearing, right? This is all like behind the scenes. USCIS sends you a notice just to tell them more about the loan product or the project, etc. So again, your thoughts on how are RFEs and NOIDs different from each other?
I mean, I think actually, and all of us, we work in other immigration categories, not just EB-5. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that an EB-5 RFE is considerably easier than something we might see under the EB-1 category or EB-2 or EB-3, because it's so much less legal interpretation. It's really 90 to 100% factual based. They're asking for bank statements. They're asking for these specific numbers. Where did this particular source come from, and how did it get there? And the difference between RFE and NOID is essentially they're the same, right? They're both requests for evidences. One is a NOID where you have 30 days or 33 days to respond. An RFE, they give you the 90 days. That's really sort of the main difference. But both of them are just requests for additional evidence or clarification on whatever was already filed.
Right. I mean, if you were a litigator, this would be a hearing and a second hearing and just addressing the judge's queries, right? Except we don't have that here, so we just receive notices.